All right, we're live. We're talking with Rashad Beard. This is I don't want to set you up here, but Rashad, I know we've talked about this the last couple of times that I've interviewed you, and this is like the third straight time that I've interviewed you, and you are the first interview of that specific season. I believe it was maybe this time last year when we previewed the 2023 season. You were the first, and we were the first when we previewed the off season for 2024. Now you're my first interview to preview the 2024 season, and that was just by accident.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing with the way our season's been turning out. I don't know if I should continue being the first. Maybe I'll try to be second or third next time. We'll see though. I don't want to jinx our season.
Well, you don't want to be the first one for the draft shows, for the off-season shows. Those are the ones that's true. Because I go after the interviews for the guys who are their season's over, so I can talk to them now. Hey, I know how it is, as you know, so we're both in the same boat. All right, so good to talk to you again. How's everything going? I know you got a little bit of a cold, but
yeah, good.
It's not as bad as it was.
No, much better than yesterday. Yesterday morning was really tough, but now, like as the day goes on, I'm getting better. I'm on the opposite end of it, so things are much better for me. I'm feeling much better.
All right. What we're going to do is we are going to go through the coaching staff, the depth chart, and so forth. Talk about the 2024 season, which you think is going to happen for your Carolina Panthers. And of course, here on our Ourlads football channel, you can subscribe to the channel. If you want to keep checking out these 2024 season preview interviews, we are just beginning, as I mentioned here, with Rashad, Panther Nation Podcast. And also, we're going to be doing not only NFL, but college football, too. Matter of fact, I got my first college football interview at 2 o'clock today with Jed May, who is going to help me preview the Georgia Bulldogs. So why not start at the top with the Georgia Bulldogs with our first 2024 college football interview? So, yes, please subscribe, like, and share. We appreciate all that stuff. Let's get right to it, Rashad. And I guess the first question I should ask you is, first training camp, first off season for head coach Dave Canales. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. I would be remiss if I didn't comment on the move, right? Big move from Spartanburg to Charlotte. It's been great. I've come up here and bashed Tepper quite a bit, but I got to give him props for this one. The move from Spartanburg to Charlotte, nice little area. The practice fields are dope right outside of the Bank of America Stadium. So I like it. I like the vibes. Everything is good. And I mean, training camp is going well. It's not perfect. There's obviously some things we need to correct. To the offensive line's gelling. Bryce is getting the chemistry with the receivers, but it's going pretty well. I can't complain as far as training camp goes.
Okay, so there's a big scheme change, a relatively big scheme change that we talked about already, and I know now is the time to talk about it more. And that is, last year, Canales at Tampa Bay, he ran his 12 personnel packages. That's 2 tight ends and 2 receivers, the 7th most in the NFL. The Panthers ran it near the bottom. They didn't run it very much. The other one that stuck out was the 11 personnel groupings. Tampa Bay ran it 12th most, but that was 51%. That's almost average. Carolina ran it 2nd most, 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver packages. Are you noticing any of those changes coming into effect that is in a positive or negative way so far?
Yeah, very interesting that you bring that up, because as you view training camp, you do see a lot of 12 personnel. There's a lot of 2 tight end packages out there. Obviously, we do want to run the football. There's been a huge emphasis on running the football. Chuba Hubbard looking great. Miles Sanders is having a little bit of a resurgence. He's playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, with the fact that, obviously Chuba took his job. And a lot of the media is kind of on him about his high contract, his high salary, and the inability to move on from his contract. So things are meshing. They're aligning with what you're saying. I see a lot of 12 personnel, a lot of 11 too. A lot of 11 personnel. The thing right now with our tight ends, though, a lot of them are injured, right? So Ian Thomas is banged up. Tommy Trimmel's banged up right now. Stephon Sullivan just went on IR recently, so the tight end position is in flux. We brought in a couple of guys. I believe I'm looking at your list right here. Jacob Hollister, who has that connection to Canales, played with him in Seattle. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. The Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas, that aren't long-term injuries, but they've been out for quite a bit. Jatavion Sanders he's taken advantage of those opportunities, though. I really like Jatavion Sanders. He's, again, we talked about it on the show right after the draft. Not the best blocker, right? But his hands are great. We've seen those displayed at training camp. So tight ends, one of them is going to play well. One of them is going to play well for sure. Somebody's going to get some good numbers just based off of Canales' usage.
Okay. Well, by the way, there's injuries. Anything potentially long-term, or do you think these guys will be ready to go week 1?
No, the only one that's long-term is going to be Stephon Sullivan, which is not obviously on the depth chart because he's on IR. Ian and Tommy, I think Tommy's definitely working his way back. I saw him at training camp kind of on the side working. So he's on his way back. Ian Thomas, I don't think they're going to do like any short-term IR. I think he'll make it back with them by week 1. Everybody else is good to go. Jatavion's healthy, playing well, so we're good.
Okay. All right. So let's start with the offense then with Canales and the rest of the by the way, Idzik, I know he's not going to call the plays and he is the offensive coordinator by title, but this is Canales' offense. But I just wanted to bring Idzik up because he's the youngest offensive coordinator in the NFL. And what have you noticed anything about him so far? It's kind of hard when the head coach is running the offense.
Yeah, not Idzik specifically. I have not noticed it. Nothing that's popped out on the screen for me, especially at training camp. He looks like a little kid. So, like you said, he's one of the younger guys out there. So it's really difficult to kind of watch him in action. So he hasn't popped out on the screen to me.
Okay.
Not to say that he's not doing anything. There's nothing obvious that's popped out to me.
Yeah, I see he's a Durham native, so he's from the area.
That's from the area. Yep.
And he coached under Canales in Tampa and Seattle. Okay.
Yep.
So let's talk about the big boy, Bryce Young.
Yep.
Year 2. Are you noticing major differences yet?
Major is a stretch. I do see a little bit more confidence in him. I think he trusts the coaching staff and he trusts his receivers now. I think that's the biggest thing that is the difference between Bryce last year and Bryce this year. He had basically one receiver to go to last year, and that was Adam Thielen, obviously the 1,000-yard receiver last year. This year, he's developing a huge connection with Deontay Johnson. Obviously, Deontay Johnson is a pegged wide receiver 1 since day 1, since Canales walked in the building, since he's been picked up. He's been pegged as the guy. He is the focal point of the offense, and Canales will call plays as such. He's mentioned it several times in his press conferences that, hey, you got to have a focal point in the offense. It's great to spread the football around, but you got to have a focal point. And I like that. And I think that Canales is definitely going to leverage Deontay Johnson as a focal point. And I also think that Bryce Young is treating that as a focal point as well, as they're developing a huge chemistry. So again, Thielen is Thielen. He's playing very well. Mingo is starting to take a huge step forward. Obviously did not have a great season last year, but he's been working with Steve Smith Sr. in the offseason, and he's taken a big step. He looks much more improved. So again, I think, you can't talk about Bryce Young without talking about his weapons. And I think that those weapons are starting to take that next step as well. And I think the offensive line in front of him is also on paper, it's better, right? I think there's still some development there. That offensive line is still not quite gelling. If you go to training camp, you'll see that, hey, man, you'll see some gaps in there. You're like, oh, man, the offensive line doesn't look like it's improved, but they have to gel, right? The chemistry has to grow. Sure. You got Robert Hunt. You brought in Damian Lewis. Corbett moving to center. Saw some Aaron snaps at training camp. So it's just tough to isolate. I don't like talking about Bryce in isolation because, yes, he can be the great. He can show strides in his improvement, but if everything around him isn't improving, then it's tough to put it all on Bryce. So I don't know, man. Bryce is looking better though. He's looking much better than last year.
Okay. All right. So you brought up the 2 receivers. Actually, you got the 3 young receivers. Which one? I know it's early, but because this will go also for any fantasy fans out there. Yep. Which one do you think? Which one are you more confident with? Whether it's this year or in the future?
In regards to who?
Mingo, Marshall, and Leggett.
Mingo, Marshall, Leggett.
Yep.
I'm as far as future, I'm not gonna put too much stock into Marshall, just because he's on the final year of his contract, his
Okay.
rookie contract. So I don't know what we're gonna do with him. To be honest, he's had a solid camp. He started out really strong, and then it's kind of like wavered down a little bit. The spotlight is kind of off of him more recently. Not to say he won't finish strong, but he started really strong. It's kind of in the middle. It's kind of all right, touch and go, and we'll see how he finishes. Mingo is probably having the most consistent camp, and then Leggett. I think Leggett is going to be the guy like down the road. But again, we talked about that in the draft recap video. Is that this is a future investment draft? The draft class that you see is not going to be a year one banger, right? You're not going to see these guys come out there, and you see that now with Leggett. Leggett right now is nursing an injury, a lower leg injury. So he won't play on Thursday tomorrow.
Okay.
You won't see him. Haven't seen him the past couple of practices. Even when he is in practice, he's running with the second squad. He gets some sprinkles with the ones, but you're not going to see him. You're not going to see him come out and have 1,000-yard season this year. This is not going to happen. So he's a future play, sure. But for this year, for fantasy purposes, I'd be all in on Deontay Johnson.
Okay, so as far as the young guys, though, what that means is that since Marshall's off to a good start and Leggett is more of a future, at least, a 2025 guy, that this is really, and it's his last year contract-wise, as you mentioned, this is just a really good opportunity for Marshall to try to take advantage of maybe that, that seniority he has over Leggett, and maybe try to make a name for himself before he has to potentially move on. But you're still more confident though in Mingo.
Yeah, I think Mingo's had because it's year 2, right? And I think he's developing, right? I think even when I spoke to Steve Smith Sr. on his show, we talked about Mingo when we drafted him. He said he was a 2 to 3 year guy. And I think that's right in line with his development, right? I think he's going to be a second year, third year kind of guy. And I think he's coming right along. Marshall, even for me, like as a guy that sits down and watches this Carolina Panthers team, I've been a fan forever. And I'm a huge fan of Terrace Marshall. But even me, I have a hard time finding where he fits in the rest of this offense. Like you have Amir Smith-Marset, you got Jalen Coker, you got all these young guys, and I just don't know where David Moore, who's a veteran who knows Canales' squad, or who knows Canales' system, Devin Tompkins as well, who knows Canales' system from Tampa. I just don't know where Terrace Marshall fits in the grand scheme. I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on from Terrace Marshall, and I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed. That's kind of where I am with Terrace Marshall. I just don't know where he fits.
Okay.
I see younger talent that can be invested upon, and you can make something out of those guys. I just don't know where Terrace. I don't know. He's a third year guy who hasn't shown much, or fourth year guy now. He hasn't shown much, and it's not his fault, right? He's had different offensive coordinators every single year he's been here. So I'm not blaming him. I'm not saying he doesn't have the talent because I'm a huge fan. I just see younger talent that could pass him up. I just don't know where he fits, honestly.
All right. And then we did talk about, of course, these rookies after the draft. So right now, and you mentioned Smith-Marset. I know he's not a rookie, but he's somebody that, as we talked about before, maybe this is just the perfect opportunity for him and the perfect spot. And he's got talent, and sometimes that happens and you find the right team and it all fits. But at the bottom of that depth chart there with those receivers, as you mentioned, maybe those guys are too good that Marshall isn't sticking out that much that, like you said, maybe we just need to move on from Marshall and give these guys more of an opportunity even this year. So out of those younger guys, what do you think the last roster spot or two is going to come down to? And I know one of these guys like Coker may end up on the practice squad, but what's the battle? Who do you like too, as far as that battle for the last spot?
Yeah, so just to clear up, Amir Smith-Marset is almost a lock. He plays special teams. He's a returner, so he's a lock. I'm not counting him in the battle, like per se. The only battle would be between him and Devin Tompkins. Devin Tompkins is a guy that knows Canales' system. He's a special teams guy, so I would not include him in the battle for that. I think Smith-Marset has that locked up.
Okay.
However, the battle comes along at the bottom, and it comes with Terrace Marshall. Because I put it to you like this: Terrace Marshall is a guy you're going to have to extend after this year, right? You have to think about that. Are you going to extend him? It won't be huge money, but it's going to be some money. Are you going to extend him, or are you going to invest in a guy that you paid that has a lot of talent, a lot of upside, Jalen Coker? You paid him as a premier undrafted free agent, right? He got one of the higher contracts for undrafted free agency. So you got a guy that you could put a lot of time and effort in, develop the way you want him developed, right? Or are you going to waste it and say, okay, year 4 Terrace Marshall, he is who he is. So that's the kind of, it's the conundrum, right? It's not about talent, it's about team building, right? It's about building the team the way you want it. So I'm not saying that Coker is more talented than Terrace Marshall. I think that Coker probably has more upside, and that's the kind of thing that the Carolina Panthers, Dan Morgan, those guys need to think about. Coker, now that might be some bias because I did get a chance to interview Coker, so I'm going to lay my bias out there. I'm a huge fan.
Okay.
I'm going to put my bias. I like to put my bias out there. I do have a slight bias towards Jalen Coker, but I do think he ends up on the practice squad if he can clear waivers. I just question whether he does. If you cut him, he's got to clear waivers. Somebody may pick him up, put him on their active roster. So I don't know. But I do think he kind of ends up on the practice squad. David Moore, as a veteran, I think he ends up on the practice squad as well. Strawn, I like Strawn as a big, tall track guy. Still needs some development. I think he could end up on the practice squad as well. But I think if it's going to be the 6, it just all boils down to Terrace Marshall, what they're going to do with him. And I think Coker could slide up into that last spot. I just don't know. But that's where the battle lies.
All right.
I explained that well. It's tough. It's tough. It's a tough conundrum with Terrace Marshall, bro. It really is.
Hey, it's a good problem to have, though. And
it is.
It's a nice young group, and that's what you want to see, especially in this stage of development for the entire program with the new first-year head coach. So now it's just a matter, of course, of David Tepper being a little patient here, and maybe in a positive way. We can understand why he got rid of who he previously got rid of. It's not like, oh, those guys deserve more time, but hopefully he finds the right guy, and then all these guys can kind of grow together.
So just one other thought on the receivers. Sure. Deontay Johnson is also on a 1-year deal, right? So I could see a situation where if Terrace Marshall is gonna be that guy, like, you got to have some assurance for maybe potentially not extending Deontay Johnson. I think they want to extend him. I think they want to pay Deontay if he balls out, but there's a lot of flux that could happen with the wide receiver position depending on how the season goes. So I can see them going a lot of different ways with the group. But like you said, it's a good problem to
have. There was rumors, by the way, speaking of Johnson, that he was a locker room distraction in Pittsburgh. Have you heard or seen any of such a issue?
Bro, not at all. Like, I've heard about that too, and I don't know where that comes from. Like, and again, the situation could have been frustrating up in Pittsburgh, so he could have gotten to his diva mode. I get that. I understand that. And I want a little diva in my wide receivers. The best wide receivers have diva in them. So I don't mind that. I don't know where the distraction thing, and again, I don't know the history of his actions in Pittsburgh. I can't attest to those, but I have not seen one inkling of that. He's a quiet guy. He doesn't say much. You can see him show emotion on the field, right? If there's a miscommunication between him and Bryce, you'll see him kind of throw his arms up and do. But that's what I expect out of my receiver. I want to see that. But there's been no inkling of this guy's going to be a problem in the future. Not one bit. Not one iota of that.
All right. And Thielen, how's he looking? He's getting older.
Very consistent. Very consistent. He's still him. He's still a wide receiver number 2. Very consistent guy. He's going to be a guy that, listen, Mr. Third Down, Bryce needs a guy to go to. I need to go 3rd and 4th, intermediate. He's going to route somebody up really well. I'm going to Thielen. He's that kind of guy. He's trusted. And I think he's going to be great for Bryce.
Yeah, his average actually last year was a career low at 9.8. He's going to be 34 when the season starts. I'm not sure if he's turned 34 yet. But hey, that's okay. I mean, he had 137 targets last year at 33 years old. And we have some comments actually regarding the receiver position. So Jake Podger, this is not regarding the receiver position, but I wanted to start with this because he wanted to shout out to Julius Peppers, the Hall of Fame induction. And then he also had a comment on the wide receiver position. So he believes that there are some veterans who will have 100 catch seasons under their belts. Do you agree with that?
He says solid young talent mixed with the proven veterans who have 100 catch seasons. So he has they have 100 catch seasons under their belt. I don't know that we'll have multiple 100 catch guys this year, just because I do know that we're going to be running the football a lot, right? It's going to be a run heavy offense. We're going to throw when we need to, but it's going to be run. So I do think we're going to have 1,000. I think Deontay Johnson's going to have 1,000-yard receiving year. I do think he has the potential to have a 100 catch season. But I don't think we'll have multiple guys. But yes, I 1,000% agree with this comment, and I think it's one of the most slept on wide receiving cores in the league. But I think we're going to be very solid, very, very solid. I just want to put this out there that, and again, I said this multiple times already. We have to not put too much pressure on our young guys like Xavier Legette. It's going to take some time. He's going to have some flashes, right? They're going to draw some plays for him. For example, I've seen several reverse plays drawn up for him in training camp. There's been some trickery out there. They're going to get him the football, but it's going to be, it's going to come in due time. It's not going to be we're going to feed Xavier Legette 1,000,000 times. He's not going to have a 1,000-yard season. He's just not. There are not enough footballs to go around. So everybody needs to be patient with Xavier Legette. Everybody needs to be patient with Mingo. These guys are going to get there. It's the Deontay Johnson show this year for sure, 1,000%.
Okay. And then you already mentioned the offensive line, and they made some really nice pickups that we talked about on previous shows and on a previous show. And of course, that was bringing up Hunt and Lewis to the interior. Corbett is going to be interesting because he's playing relatively a new position and he's coming off an injury. So that's why you're talking about chemistry. So right there, you got three guys, that have not played together really in the interior, which we know is obviously a huge part of the line. And then on the outside, you've got the holdovers, but and Moton's been solid. I know Icky's a guy though that does have to think. He has to take that next step, doesn't he? Because he's still not the guy that you thought he was going to be.
Yeah, he's not the guy yet, and I think it's largely in part due to the scheme. Right, we're not putting him in position to succeed. He's a run blocking guy. Coming out of NC State, that was his forte, is run blocking. So when you get a guy like Canales who says we're going to run the football a lot, I think that's where you're playing to his strengths. And so I think that Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt, these guys are road graders, right? I think we're going to hopefully dominate the line of scrimmage when it comes to the run game. But I will say in camp, it hasn't been perfect. I would be up here. I don't want to lie to anybody, right? It hasn't been great. Corbett, I've seen some low snaps. I've seen some snaps not put in the right place. I've seen some just not good snaps, right? So like you said, he's played center before with the Browns, but it was not in large. He didn't have many reps there, especially game reps, like real regular season game reps.
Yep.
So it's going to be a transition for him. It's been a little bit of a rough start. Hopefully it comes along. Hunt, Lewis. I know Damian Lewis right now is a little dinged up, so you probably won't see him tomorrow either. So again, I think we haven't seen the full offensive line play together in a lot of reps in training camp. So I think that's a part of the struggle. You got some young guys playing. I think I've seen, where's my guy? I don't even see him up here. Bador Traore. I've seen him play at right tackle when Taylor Moton was out a little bit. So you got some guys starting reps, right? That's a third string guy playing starter reps when Moton was out. So in those instances, that's probably where he sees a little bit of struggles from the offensive line. So we haven't seen it yet. I think we need to see a preseason game or two. Let's see how it goes. There's been up and downs. I think that eventually they'll get it together, and Bryce will be fine behind that offensive line. I believe. I appreciate the investment in the offensive line for sure.
Yeah, again, on paper, this is a completely different looking team, and this is what you're looking for year two for Bryce Young as well, because you got to give him time to throw the football. Now he's got more weapons. He's got some better coaching. And then at running back, everybody, of course, so all Carolina fans are going to wait for Brooks and when he's going to be able to, get out there, and that's going to be huge. But Chuba had a big year last year, so now we're also going to, for Panther fans, hope that Sanders can rebound after a disaster in 2023.
Yeah, I think Sanders is definitely got a chip on his shoulder, man. He's been yapping at the media during practice. It's pretty interesting. He's definitely got a chip on his shoulder. Brooks, we're waiting on him, man. I think it's going to be I think they made an announcement that it's going to be week 3 or week 4, probably before we see him. He has been working on the side. He's been doing more, so he's working his way back, and so we're excited for that. Again, talked about it earlier. Again, this is an investment draft class. You won't see it year 1, year 2, year 3. That's when they're going to really peak. And so, again, Brooks was drafted because you got a guy like Chuba Hubbard who was on a contract year, a little bit of insurance just in case you can't get him back. Miles Sanders, we don't know what's going to happen with him after this year, but I expect big things from Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard this year. Those will be the 1-2 punch for the bulk of the season.
Okay. By the way, I just noticed, I don't know, Dylan Johnson, was he signed when?
Yeah, he got signed after Rashad Penny retired. Rashad Penny retired a couple weeks into camp, or actually like a week into camp. He said, my body's not feeling right. I'm done. So he retired. Then we signed Dylan Johnson. So Dylan Johnson's the guy on the roster.
I like Dylan Johnson.
Yep.
So
he's been looking okay.
He's a physical guy. And he's just one of those guys that I think he's got to stay healthy because he's so physical that he wears his body down. He's one of those guys.
Yeah.
So, but I think he's got a shot to be an NFL running back, not a starter, but I think a contributor. So,
yep, for sure.
Keep an eye on him. All right. So that's the offense. Now let's take a look at the defense. Evero's second year. Now, did they make the switch last year to the 3-4, or is this the year they're making the switch to the 3-4?
No, this is year 2 in Evero's system, and this is we switched last year.
Okay.
And so this defense is ahead of the game, right? They've been playing very, very well. Obviously, in training camps, the defense are always ahead of they're always ahead of the offense, especially when installing a new system on offense. So I got to be honest, man, Jadeveon Clowney has looked like a complete monster out there. Like, he's been really, really wreaking havoc on the offense. And again, he's been going up against some third string guys at points, right? But even when he's going against the starters, he's looked really good. He's playing motivated. I don't know what his motivation is right now, but he looks like a monster out there. So kudos to Jadeveon Clowney. It's a good thing for Carolina Panthers fans to see, especially when you lose a guy like Brian Burns, a fan favorite. People love Brian Burns. And so when you lose a guy like him, to see a guy like Clowney come in there and step right in and not lose a step is great. It's great. So defensively, we're looking good. The only question mark we have, I think, for the defense is the cornerback opposite of J.C. Horn. Right now that's Dane Jackson, but I don't know what they're going to do. He's been playing well. He hasn't given us reason to be like, oh, he's not it.
Okay.
But I do think that they could potentially bring another veteran down the line. And I don't know what we're going to do, to be honest. But Dane has been playing well. He's been playing well. Playing well.
By the way, you mentioned Clowney. So, and we talked about this. Maybe it's not a surprise that he's looking the way he is, because he talked about how coming back home to play in the NFL was not really possible for him until now, based on his maturation process, and just the time was right. And so maybe that's what he's needed, is to feel comfortable, to be back home. And look, he's coming off a solid year last year. And so maybe this is going to be another big year for him. So he's still in the prime of his career as well. He's not over the hill. He doesn't have a year or two left. He's got some time left. And this is the perfect opportunity to hopefully take advantage of that at this stage of his career. Let's take a look at some stats from last year to see what the team has to do to improve. Let's see. It was interesting. I found to see that they were top 5 in yards allowed, but 29th in points allowed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. We gave up some points. I think that's largely due in part to the offense and not being able to sustain drives. They put the defense in really bad positions to succeed at times. And so like I blame a lot of that on the offense with the inability to sustain drives. But yeah, I mean we were kind of a bend but don't break. So we didn't give up a ton of yards, but gave up some points just due to being put in bad positions. So
Yeah.
that sounds about right. It sounds right. It does. It sounds very accurate.
Yeah, that was a little bit surprising when I saw that, but there are reasons for it. But here's the one that has to improve, and that is the takeaways.
Yeah.
The team had 11 last year. That was last in the NFL. Baltimore, the Giants, by the way, led with 31. Carolina had 11. So that was the difference between first and last. Also, Carolina was last in the NFL in giving up touchdown runs with 25. Baltimore was the best at 6. So that's a big difference. And pressure. Now, this is, of course, what everybody on defense, what kind of pressure team you're going to have. You just lost Brian Burns, as you mentioned. And the team was 30th in pressure percentage with them last year. And also not very good with just 27 sacks. So where's the pressure and the sacks? Where's it coming from?
That's a great question, man. That's a question I've been asking for a while. Is even with Burns, he Burns, he never like had that 15, 16 sack season that we all wanted from him. But this is a great question. I think Clowney is definitely a run stop first guy. Like I don't think he's a premier pass rusher by any means. And so in theory, DJ Wanham was supposed to be that guy that was going to bring some of the heat. However, we have yet to see him at training camp because he's on the PUP due to complications with one of his injuries. And I can't recall what it was, but he has an injury and he's had complications with it coming into the season. So right now, I got to be honest with you, I don't know where it's coming from, but I will tell you, Clavon Chason has had a solid camp. He's shown up pretty well.
Really?
He's a guy. Yeah, he's showing up, man. I'm surprised too. He's played pretty well. He's out there. I mean, he's one of those guys, one of the first people out there, last to league type guy. I think that he's really kind of putting some stock in. Hey, this might be my last go. If I can't get it done here, I can't get it done anywhere. And so I think he's really playing. I'm not saying he's going to have a double-digit sack season. I'm not saying that he's going to rotate and be great, but he has looked so good so far in camp. That's all I can say. Yep. DJ Johnson, I mean, I can't say that I've seen it in multiple practices, but the coaching staff is really hyping up DJ Johnson like he's taking the next step.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. I've seen him have one good practice where he had a sack. But the sack came when he was unblocked. But he had the sack. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I have not seen it personally with this next step with him, but we're gonna need it because right now we want him out. We don't know when he's gonna get back. I haven't seen him at training camp. Probably won't see him at training camp. It's gotta come between Clavon Chason, DJ Johnson, Clowney, and I believe, but we're probably gonna sign somebody else. We did sign. I forgot my guy's name. Kimoko Torre, but he got injured and went to IR, and so I'm sure we're gonna be on the look for another guy. We worked out Carl Lawson. We worked out a couple of guys, but we never signed him. So I think we're going to end up signing another body to help rotate in with the edge rusher to increase those pressures.
Yeah. So, and how long is Toure out for?
He's an IR guy, so I don't know how long he's going to be out. It's at least I'm assuming at least 4. I don't know. I don't know the extent of the injury. I just know he landed on IR.
And this is an injury dating back to late last season. He suffered a torn quad, and Barno is another guy. That what's up with Barno, because this would be a big season for him, isn't
not
it?
Good. Not good for Barno. We have not seen him either. I think he's recovering from an ACL. If I want to say, he's a speed guy. This is a guy that we wanted to see. We wanted to see good things from him. We want to see him come off that edge using that speed, but haven't seen him at camp yet. He's still injured. Recovered from that injury. And I think he's going to run out of time, to be honest with you. I don't know that they're going to wait on him. I actually could see him getting cut, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
All right, let's quickly go through each position group. So we know Derek Brown. Brown is right now. Is he? Would you say Brown at this point? Now, everybody's going to say quarterback, but reality, talent wise, longevity, is Brown the face of the franchise right now?
Ooh, the face. I don't. It's tough to. That's tough because when you put that face of a franchise on a defensive player, you're thinking like Aaron Donald. You're thinking
Yeah,
like
sure.
really like
I hear
Derek Brown is great, but he doesn't provide the sacks that Aaron Donald brings. Like I love Derek Brown. I think he is a top 5 interior guy in the league. But I just don't know that I would call him the face of the franchise. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's still got to be Bryce. But he's
definitely
the face
one.
of the defense. Yeah. And even with the face of the defense, I mean, people love JC around here too. So, and I know JC is injured. He stays injured, oft injured. But I think JC's probably up there too from a talent perspective. One of the most talented guys on the roster. JC and Derek definitely for sure faces of the defense.
All right. Also new, Ashawn Robinson. He's on his 3rd team in 3 years. He's a former 2nd-round draft pick of the Lions back in 2016. He averages about 50 tackles a year. He's a solid player.
Yep.
What do you think about the line in general?
So the line, I think we're okay. The interior of the defensive line, Ashawn, Tuttle, Derek Brown, I think they're going to cause some problems. Nick Thurman also coming in that rotation. Very, very good. LeBron Ray also showed some stuff last year. I like this. I like the interior of the offensive line. The defensive line. It's going to be very, very solid group. I have no problems with them at all.
And the rookie, Crumedy, he a very experienced college football player. Played in 53 college football games. That's a lot of experience, and he's also very versatile. So, what have you seen so far or heard? Anything positive?
Nothing too much. Nothing really jumped off the page for me. For Crumedy, I think he's doing okay. I haven't heard any bad things either from him. So I think it's just a solid training camp for him. And again, it's tough when you're in rotation with guys like Derek Brown, Ashawn Robinson, and Shot Tuttle. It's tough to kind of make your name. So I think he'll get in there and rotate in. And like you said, very experienced. He's strong. I think he's going to be fine. I think he'll be just fine in rotation.
All right. At linebacker, so we talked about the edge guys. So in the middle, you have the new guy is Josie Jewell. So and when Jewell's healthy, he's very productive. Matter of fact, he's averaged 116 tackles the last 3 years when he's been a healthy player. Has a lot of starting experience with Denver, I believe, 6 years with the Broncos before coming over here to Carolina. And he's going to be teaming up with Shaq, who's coming off that leg injury last season. Limited him to 68 snaps. How's he looking?
Yeah, Shaq haven't seen too much of Shaq in training camp, to be honest with you. He's been kind of resting. I'm not sure I think he's nursing something. And I'm not sure what the extent of the injury is, but he's nursing something. Haven't seen too much of him. Jewell's looking great. No concerns about Jewell. He knows the system. He knows what to expect from Evero going back to his Denver days. Trevin Wallace has been looking okay. The rookie that we got, he's been looking good. For for me specifically, I wasn't a huge fan of the pick. I'm on record with that. I wasn't a huge fan, but he's probably gonna make me eat some crow, which I'm okay with. He's been looking solid, very athletic. Canales goes on record saying that, hey, when he knows what he's doing, and when he's got the right thing in mind, he's great. When he second guesses himself and finds himself out of position, that's where he gets beat. So he's still got some learning to do, but I think he's going to be very solid. I think he's going to be very good. Again, just another one of them investment pieces down the road. It's going to be solid. But yeah, I'm okay with the linebacker group, especially the interior. I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah, Wallace, and we talked about that at the time because they drafted him in the 3rd round. Ourlads had him as a 5th to 7th round guy. So that's where I can understand you being a little apprehensive about the pick, but hey, you know what? I feel the same way. It's like, hey, you know what? I hope I'm wrong with some players that I criticize on my own team or the picks or things of that, or the free agent signings. So yeah, this is a kid that was very productive in college. He's got a good combination, size, speed, power, length kind of deal. So it looks like it's transitioning pretty well. So far, so good. So that'd be really nice because somebody eventually is going to have to take over for Shaq. So
Right.
Maybe Trevin Wallace will
Agreed.
be
I
it.
think that was the point of us picking Trevin Wallace, the future proof ourselves. So it's working out. So far so good. It's working out.
The other rookie is Michael Barrett from Michigan. So he was part of the national championship team, and he was there for a long time. He was there for 6 years, started 3 years. But he's a guy that, looks like he could, really be good in coverage. He's got good coverage skills. He could probably even play big nickel if you need to. And you would think that he's going to be a big part of special teams. Which is something that we'll talk about because there's a new special teams coach. But yeah, Michael Barrett is another guy that I would think that you'd want to see how he's doing during camp.
Yeah, I haven't seen much from him, to be honest with you. He's not really jumped off the page for me, so not really seen too much from him.
The secondary, you mentioned Horn already, and it's about staying healthy for J.C. Horn. But the Panthers, Dan Morgan, they had to take the chance, right? I mean, they gave him the 5th-year option. He's that talented of a player. If he could stay healthy, he puts it all together. And what I mean by that is he really makes a name for himself as maybe one of the top corners in the league because he has that talent.
Yep, it all boils down to health. Availability is the best ability. He's got to stay on the field, and so if he does that, I think you'll start to hear those discussions about being one of the top cornerbacks in the league. We know he has it. We know he has the talent. We've seen it. We just haven't seen it enough. Unfortunately, I think this is the year. I think this is the year where he stays healthy. Like you said, this is a 5th-year option year. They picked it up, so we're starting to think about big money now. And so he's got to put something on paper or on film to justify the big money. And I think this is the year. So, but yeah, opposite of him, Dane is the question. I think he's been okay. Haven't given me a reason not to think he's the guy. We're going to find out here soon. Are we sticking to just the corners, or you want to go safeties?
Have you noticed anything yet with the rookie Smith Wade? I know that.
Yeah. So Shaw Smith Wade, I think he's had a solid offseason. He isn't perfect, right? This is what you expect out of him. But I think he has been okay. He's been solid. I don't think he'll be in the starting lineup or by any means, but he'll rotate in where necessary. But yeah, he's having a solid offseason. Solid.
Is he battling Robinson right now for that spot behind Troy Hill at nickel?
Yes. I think that, and right now I think he's got that battle on. Jamie Robinson is having a bit of a rough offseason, and this is coming from a Jamie Robinson fan. I'm a Florida State fan, so I like Jamie Robinson. But he's having a rough. I wouldn't say rough, but he isn't having the best training camp, to be honest with you. And so I could see them kind of saying going with Wade and Shaw Smith Wade and Troy Hill, Dane, and those guys are kind of moving on from Jamie. Which is unfortunate, but that's the name of the game when you have new coaching staff that didn't select you. You know what I mean? So that is what it is.
Okay, so safeties. So you have Woods and Fuller. Fuller's the new guy. Woods had a nice year last year, even though he didn't play as many snaps as he would like, but he still had a very strong year. And then you have Fuller, who comes over from the Rams. Fuller, very experienced. Matter of fact, you've got a couple of the new guys. I mean, Fuller, talking about a 6th-round draft pick, and that was back in 2020. And Dane Jackson was a 7th-round draft pick back in 2020. So these guys have fought hard as late-round draft picks and made a nice name for themselves in the league as starters. And you got 2 of them here on your team. And Fuller had a really nice season, as I mentioned, 94 tackles, 3 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles. And again, he did not even play a full season. And then the team also added Nick Scott, who also played for the Rams, but came from the Bengals last year. Finally got an opportunity to play pretty much a full season as a part-time starter. So, talk about the Woods, of course, the holdover, and a couple of new guys.
Yeah, so Woods is having a great training camp. I like Woods a lot. I think they talked about the only question mark about Woods is his hands, right? Because sometimes he'll have interceptions, right? And that's the reason why he plays secondary, right? And he's not a receiver. But one of the issues with him is that he'll have interceptions and he'll drop them, right? And so I think they implemented a fine system now for the Panthers that, hey, if you drop something, you got to pay a little fine. I'm not sure where it goes to, probably some charity or something, but that's interesting. Hopefully he'll catch some more of those interceptions. But Woods, I love Woods. I think he's was an excellent addition last year. Fuller, I think Fuller's going to be great. He's a great addition as well. Nick Scott, like you said, great addition. Nick Scott's having a good camp too, by the way.
Okay.
Alex Cook as well, who we probably won't talk too much about, is also having a solid camp. Another guy that is on this list that we just signed the other day is Caden Stearns. Caden Stearns, I liked him coming out of college. I haven't seen too much of his NFL film, but out of college, I like this kid. So I'm interested. I'm intrigued about how we leverage him. Sam Franklin is a guy that we talked about on the show a lot. I like him. He broke his foot, I want to say. So he's going to be out we don't know the time yet, and they haven't made a designation on an IR, but he's going to be out for a little bit. But he's a key special teams guy and was working his way in the rotation to play actual safety. Had a pick 6 last year. I like Sam, a good energy guy. Like, he brings some juice. Unfortunately, he got hurt during one of the practices. So that's unfortunate. I don't think it's a severe I think it's a fracture. Matter of fact, I don't think it's severe, but I think he'll be back for sure this season. We'll see him again.
Yeah, well, he's not even on IR, so that's a good.
Yeah, they haven't made a choice on what they're going to do with him yet. So
okay,
but he is injured right now. We have not seen him in a couple of weeks.
So you mentioned Cook, Alex Cook, and you mentioned a couple other guys. Give me a couple other guys like Alex Cook and a couple other guys that are not, name players that you think have had pretty good off seasons and maybe could be interesting, roster guys this year.
Just defense or offense?
Offense too, whole team.
Okay, so let's keep it on let's keep this image on the defense real quick, and then we can scroll up so I can tell you. I think Willie Drew is a guy that is a guy you need to keep an eye on. He's solid undrafted guy that we picked up. He's having a solid offseason. It isn't perfect, but he's having a solid offseason. Keep an eye on him, at least for the practice squad. I would also say, let me see. Anthony Brown, we just picked him up. Again, I don't know where he's going to fit. He could be that veteran selection that we talked about earlier for the secondary. I just haven't seen enough of him to say, all right, he's the guy. But we picked him up. He's a veteran, played with the Cowboys a couple years ago, but solid guy. I'm sure he'll make the roster and provide some veteran presence. Let's see. I like Iku Leota a lot for edge rusher. He had a good offseason last season as well, good training camp. This year, I don't think he's having as good a training camp, but I think he's a guy that may stick around just because he's been consistent, very consistent. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Iku. Let's see who else. I think that's about it. Everybody
for the defense.
The defense is pretty set, man, because it's year 2. They know what they want. They know what they need. So defense is okay. Offense. So again, I'm a Coker guy. So Jalen Coker's a guy you got to keep an eye on as far as getting a roster spot.
Yeah.
Jaden Sheridan, is a running back. I don't know that he's going to make the roster, but he's had a really good training camp. He's gotten a lot of reps. So we'll see what happens with Jaden Sheridan. He's a running back. Offensive line, I want to see more of Yash Nijman. He's on the pup right now. We haven't seen him. Signed him for a nice little check last year. But again, injured. He's one of those guys we just haven't seen him. So he's probably going to make the roster though for sure. Who else?
Is that it?
I would say for the tight ends, I think Jordan Matthews could sneak in. Jordan Matthews, converted wide receiver. I think he can sneak in and take a final roster spot. Due in part to Stephon Sullivan getting hurt. Stephon Sullivan is a matchup problem. Unfortunately, Stephon just can't stay healthy. He couldn't stay healthy over the past couple of years. So he went to IR. Not sure how long it's going to be, but I think Jordan Matthews could get that final spot and pose that matchup threat. Get him as a converted wide receiver. It's going to be a little bit faster than some of these traditional tight ends. So I think that's about it for guys that are on the kind of on the bubble, so to speak.
I see Ricky Lee here as the second left tackle. So
Yeah.
is that legit, or is that a
I
bad
don't
thing?
I don't know. No, I don't think like so. Ricky Lee, he went to my alma mater, so I like Ricky Lee a lot. Probably a little bit of bias there. Just got to put my biases out there. But Ricky Lee, he played an interior. He was an interior guy first. They moved him out to tackle. I think I think he's playing well. He's having a solid camp. Solid camp. I just think we haven't seen enough of Yash. Yash Nijman is, I think, the guy they want to play left and right, kind of be that swing tackle guy.
Okay.
I just don't know if we haven't seen it, so it's kind of
Okay.
tough. So I think Ricky could make the roster if Yash does not is a long-term injury scare.
But by the way, how's Zavala doing? We know we talked about him and his former teammates. They were teammates, Icky and Zavala. But Zavala's is he still behind the 8 ball there, or how's?
I think he's getting better. I think he's having a much better camp. But I think he has some. I think he still has a ways to go. Still has a ways to go. I think Christensen is ahead of him. Cade May is probably a little ahead of him as well. But that final group is going to be interesting to kind of watch out. We'll see how that goes.
Special teams. So is this? I like this place kicker matchup. I'll say that. I think Panera's a solid vet. I think it's perfect because Panera's a solid vet. One of these guys that, all right, if we have to go to Panero, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. But this Mevis kid, he's got a big leg. He kicked that huge kick. I forget which game it was. It's like 60-something yards. The game-winning kick last year. How's that? Is it too early to tell? Is this going to be one of those that'll be? Is this a real competition? First of all,
I think it is a real competition. Eddie, I think it could boil down to money as well. Eddie kind of held out the bulk of the offseason trying to get a little bit more money, I'm assuming. And so that's why they picked up Harrison. And so I think it's turning into a little bit of a battle. I would say right now, Eddie has a slight edge as he hasn't missed any kicks in this camp. Harrison did miss a couple. Harrison does have a huge leg, but I don't know if it's as accurate as we need it to be. Pinheiro has a limited leg, but he's accurate within anything within 45 yards.
Yeah,
I think Eddie is solid, but Eddie's accurate, but he was put in a lot of good position to succeed. Right, we didn't challenge his leg much last year. All of his kick, I saw us punt from our own 40-yard line to avoid kicking a field goal. Right, so he was put in a very good positions to win and not put his miss record at risk. You know what I mean? So I think it's gonna boil down to these preseason games, and in these games, is Harrison gonna be able to make these kicks under pressure? Is he gonna be able to show up? And I think we'll actually see it's a real battle though for sure.
And how's the rest of the unit? By the way, I sorry to interrupt, but I should mention, as I said just a little bit before, that you've got a new special teams coach. So Tracy Smith, first year, and he was with Seattle for a few years, so he knows Canales. They've got the connection there. But I believe this is the first time Smith has been a coordinator. Special teams, he's the guy. So, I don't know if you've heard anything pro or con yet about Tracy Smith. Again, big year. Everybody's interested in this new rule. What do you think about the special teams in general?
In general, I can't attest to the coaching because I really don't know too much. Like you said, he's a new special teams coach. I haven't heard any bad or positive things about him. It's just kind of he's a special teams coach. Not to disrespect special teams, but it's just special teams, right? So I don't know that we're not making a big deal out of special teams coach.
No,
but I will say, Hecker's Hecker, right? One of the best punters in the league. JJ Jansen is a long time veteran, been around the league for a long time. So we like JJ, we like Hecker, and we need to see where the kicker battle is going to go. As far as kick returners, Marset, he's one of them for sure. Raheem Blackshear, very, very good kick returner as well. So I'm interested. I don't even know how it looks yet. I mean, I need to see it tomorrow in the live game. I need to see how it's going to end up as far as the new kick return is going to be, because I've seen the kick return, but I haven't seen our players do it yet. So I need to see it, see how it's going to go. But And again, got to keep an eye on Devin Tompkins. Devin Tompkins is a guy that, again, has a special teams ability, looks good in punt returns. Could he push one of those guys out? Maybe, maybe not. But I do think Devin Tompkins at least ends up on the practice squad.
Yeah, and he's, like you said, these kids, they have these edges because they played under their coach. So the coach, the head coach is always going to take. That's why I was always so critical of the whole Aaron Rodgers is the New York Jets GM crap. So every coach or big time quarterback is going to take players from their other team. It's just the way you're going to do it. And so that's what Canales is doing. He's taken several players that he knows, the special teams coach, his offensive coordinator. He knows these guys. If obviously he's going to go with them. So a kid like Tompkins, that's you're spot on. I think he's a definite sleeper to make the team. So
for sure, I like it. And he's shifty too. He got some receiving ability as well.
Yeah, he had I believe he went to Utah State in college. I know he had a nice career out there in the West Coast. Okay, so. We're going to close with a prediction on what you believe the season's going to look like. Well, let's go with just most of the team is healthy, because that's how it's with a lot of teams in the NFL nowadays. Is that if you're healthy, what's the ceiling? Like, can you in this division? Bryce Young takes the next step. The team is healthy. Can they battle for a division title?
Anything is possible, but I don't think we're going to be in contention for a title. If I'm being realistic, I don't think we'll be in contention for a title run. I think the ceiling for us, I won't say ceiling, but I will say a realistic guess for what we're going to be, what the Carolina Panthers is going to be this year, is a 7 to 8 win team. I think most Carolina Panthers fans will gladly accept that. Yeah. The way the past couple of seasons have gone, 7 to 8 wins would be an ideal season and a step in the right direction for the Carolina Panthers. So that's my prediction. It would be great if we challenged for a division title, but I think if everything was healthy and everything went the way it was supposed to go, I think Atlanta has the best. And I hate to say that because I'm not a huge Falcons fan, but the way they're built, the way that team is built, and they do have a new head coach and everything too. So we'll see. But I think Atlanta is a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I think the thing with Atlanta, and I'll be talking with Kevin Knight from the Falcoholic at some point in the next week, I believe, talk about the Falcons. But one thing with them is that if you're going to beat out Atlanta, you got to get them early, because they're going through major scheme changes. So, and their quarterback is coming off new quarterback coming off a major injury. New coaching staff, major scheme changes. It might take a while for Atlanta to get going early in the season. So if they get off to a slow start, that's how you take advantage of that. But if they get off to a good start, forget it, like you said, because they do look like they were the most talented team in the division, even though Tampa Bay, I know Canales is gone, but Tampa Bay is maybe they're being disrespected again because that was a really nice season they had. So.
Yeah, I think with Tampa, you'll soon find out how important Canales was or wasn't. Right? Yep. Was it just a fluke? But I think he's done a great job. I think the proof is in the pudding with Baker, and it's been with Geno as well. So I think Canales is really the real deal, and I think Tampa might take a little step back with that. And I could be wrong. They do have solid weapons around Baker, and so Baker doesn't have to do it by himself. He still does have Mike Evans and Godwin and those guys. So. Yep. They're not to be slept on, but I think Atlanta on paper is the most talented team on paper, but obviously that doesn't win anything. You got to go out there and play between the lines. So,
and by the way, the new offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay did coach Baker before, so he knows Baker.
Well, I don't know if that's a good thing. He might know him, but did he fix him? That's the thing. Canales fixed him.
That's true. That was a hell of a year for Tampa Bay last year, and that was. But I think you look at it though, and I think the transformation started though with the Rams, because he had some decent moments there. Cohen was part of that staff with McVay, and so that's what you're hoping for if you're a Buck fan is that Cohen can continue that the type of coaching that maybe it's possible that it started there, and Canales just kind of went with it, and we'll see whether or not Baker can be the man again, because he was pretty much the whole reason, not the whole reason, but he was the big reason why Tampa Bay won that division last year. So,
yep.
Before I let you go, Rashad, I just want to remind all of our viewers out there who are not familiar with your work to check out Panther Nation Podcast. That's the YouTube channel. How often do you record videos? How often? And do you do all your videos or half of them live? How does that work?
Yeah, we are like a live platform. Most of what we do is live. We don't film videos and then post them. So we're off the cuff live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. That's our main show. That's our primary show, our primary go-to. Then, man, anytime there's news, breaking news, we're going live. Anytime there's training camp video, I go live after every training camp practice that I attend. I haven't been to the past two because I've been a little under the weather. Didn't want to spread germs anywhere, so I stayed home. But after every training camp practice, we go live. I try to go live around lunchtime. And then we're actually having a live show in person at Hot Fly Brewery in Charlotte, right, on August 15th, which is next week after the Jets training. I don't know if you're coming. Are you coming to the Jets practice?
When is it?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday. That's a, what do I got next Thursday? I wish yeah. When did they schedule that?
You said when?
Yeah, they must have scheduled that a while ago.
A while back. Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, Jets joint practice is August 15th, 9:30 in the morning. That same day in the afternoon, we'll be going live to have a live show to recap the entire training camp. But yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. It's good stuff.
And that's gonna be in Charlotte.
In Charlotte, yep.
And where's the practice?
It's at right outside of Bank of America Stadium. There's practice fields right beside the stadium.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's something that I'm definitely gonna consider here. And I'm glad you said that, because I think I was about to schedule Kevin actually from Atlanta on the 15th. So I might have to think about maybe coming down there instead. But if I do, I'll definitely reach out.
Yeah, it is ticketed too, and I have extra tickets I think I have extra and extra if you need it. Just let me know.
I will absolutely let you know. I am going to think about that. That would be a great opportunity, and I appreciate it as always, Rashad. I look forward to talking to you during the season, hopefully, because that would mean we have some positive things to talk about. Yeah, and let's hope it's the franchise takes the next step, because it's long overdue.
So, I hope so. We'll see.
Thanks, Rashad. Oh, and by the way, of course, David, tell your buddy David hi.
He'll be here. He'll be here on the 15th as well.
Okay, so because he's on our he's in my dynasty league. So that sounds great. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot, Rashad.
Sounds good, man.